Hi folks, Melvin here with another VCV Rack tutorial. This time I'll cover ALM's Tyso Daiko. It's a dual voice percussion module for your non-average drum tasks. A small disclaimer here, it is a paid module, but it costs only like $15. That's definitely worth it in my opinion. But that said, let me run you through it real quick before I'll show you some practical examples. But yeah, it really looks more intimidating than it really is. I've got an LFO patched to trigger input 1 and I'm sending output 1 to my monitors. With the wave control you can scroll through a bunch of wave shapes. There's a release control to adjust the length. And a surface control, which adds some attack in the beginning. And after that, it lengthens the attack time. So yeah, attack and release basically. Now on an acoustic drum, you usually have two drum heads, and by tuning them differently, you can create a pitch dive or pitch increase. And that's where these two controls come into play. So we've got a start pitch and an end pitch. So if you turn up the start pitch, it dives down from 1 kHz to 165 Hz. And the speed of which is controlled by the rate control. And the modulation is turned off with a rate of 0. But if you increase the rate and make it faster than the release, it will loop over. And this gives this module a unique texture, especially when you speed it up. And it basically becomes FM synthesis at this point. In the top right, we've got a EQ control. At noon, it's turned off, but counterclockwise, it adds a high shelf. So it boosts the higher frequencies, and clockwise, it adds a low shelf, boosting the lower frequencies. Yeah, and that's cool for kick drums. We want that low end. But this EQ only works on output 1. On output 2, we've got a wave folder. So this is the exact same sound, but just with a wave folder added in between. And that's really great for creating snare drums. Or hi-hats. Right, let me show you some example patches. Here's a cool trick I came across by accident. But the EQ has two inputs. One external input, so you can send any source into the EQ. So for example, if I add a noise source or something, it's summed with the other sound. But you've also got an EQ input. So this is basically a CV control for this EQ knob. But by mistake, I used output number 2 and connected that to the EQ input instead of the external input. But if we compare that, here, so this is the dry output 2. So with the wave folder. And you can send that to the external input, and then you can take output 1. So it goes from output 2 to the input back to output 1. So now you can use the EQ. But if you connect it to the EQ CV input, it adds some really raspy distortion. Clipping basically. Which can be nice as well. But yeah, of course you can also use the volt per octave input. So I've got the marbles right here. So you can create some really weird metallic and melodic percussion sounds this way. I've also used the accent input. And it depends which output you're using. On output 1, it will lengthen the release with the accent control. It makes it 2 times longer, but on output 2, it shortens the release. If you take a clock signal and send it through a clock divider, so I'm using the same trigger from marbles, but I halve it. And if I send that to the accent control, you've got some more rhythmic variation. But of course you can modulate anything. So for example the wave input. Or maybe the rate. Or both. You can also utilize both outputs to create both a kick and a snare. So in this case I'm using marbles again in the drum mode, and trigger 1 is sending to trigger 1, trigger 3 to trigger 2. But as you can hear, if you turn down the volt, it's basically the exact same sound. But as soon as you turn up the volt control, it starts to work like a snare or even a hi-hat. And this is especially cool for drum and bass sounds. Here, let me load up another patch. So the same patch, I've just added a reverb and a wasp filter and some distortion. This is the dry sound. Modulating the end frequency as well. And you can always add more low end with a filter. A high pass filter in this case. Oh yeah, by the way, we also have a choke group. So for example, I've got 2 sounds one band to the left, one to the right. So this trigger is going to trigger 2. If I connect the cable to the choke input, that means output 1 will be choked or muted. But yeah, output 2 is unaffected. Alright, that's it. I hope you learned something today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this module. I'm not sure if I would pay the full price for the real deal, but yeah, here in VCV Rack it's definitely a cool sound generator. Let me know what modules you want me to cover next, or if you've got any other questions. Check out my website optoproductions.com to learn more about modular synthesis. I've also got a free beginner's guide there. And yeah, I'll see you next week with another tutorial.